Hello and welcome everybody to another version of Talk Data to Me. We have a very special guest today with us. We got Jose Plehn. He is the CEO of BrightQuery. Welcome, Jose. Very excited to have you. Let's start off by telling us a little bit about the background of your company.
Sure. Hi everyone. I'm Jose Plehn. I'm a CEO and founder of BQ. BQ was founded a couple of years ago, and we're based in Orange County, California, by Los Angeles. And we are the origin of BQ is actually academic research. So I used to be a professor for a number of years. My formal training is as an economist. Eventually, I became an accounting professor and finance professor. And most recently, and what brought me to California is I was at Berkeley at the Haas School of Business and Anderson at UCLA. And BQ was born out of research that I did for the better part of a decade as a professor and also working with government agencies in the US that collect data on businesses.
That's very cool. Can you tell us a little bit about the ideal customer profile that you're seeking out?
Sure, absolutely. So we serve, just by way of background, four verticals, and then I'll kind of deep dive into one. We serve what we call public capital markets. So these are asset managers and hedge funds primarily. We also serve what we call private capital markets, which includes private equity firms, investment banks, and venture capital firms that are primarily interested in private companies. Then we also serve risk and compliance, which includes primarily banks and insurance companies. And then finally, we also serve corporates. And that will be kind of the focus of today's conversation. And in the corporates vertical, it's primarily in the sales and marketing type use case and master data management and entity resolution, but very much in the realm of sales enablement.
Very nice. Yeah, you guys have a very unique set of data that I think will everybody will be very impressed with after you're done today. But what are the main problems? Maybe we'll focus on that, the sales and marketing side, and then you can dive into some of the other stuff. But what are the main problems that you help your customers solve?
Sure, absolutely. Main problems are multifaceted. It starts off with core firmographics. So typically, if you're populating your CRM or ERP system, you need basic information about a company, such as its name, its address, headcount, revenue, industry classification, and such. And there are many people who provide that. We provide that as well. But one key difference, at least first with that regard, is everything we source and provide is coming from the IRS and Department of Labor. So it's all verified. And it's coming from audited filings. So it's supremely precise and accurate. So that's our first problem we help solve, just populating a database. But then on top of that, we have other fields which are very unique to us. We do have full financials on every company in the U.S., both public and private. Again, sourced from these agencies, the SEC, the IRS, and also Department of Labor for payroll and headcount. And we have credit information. Moreover, we trend all this over time. So we've been tracking every company in the US since 2010. So if you want to have an understanding of what's the financial health of a company, how much are they spending, or what are their operating expenses, what's their EBITDA, how profitable are they, how have they been growing quarter over quarter, especially in the wake of this unusual COVID crisis we've seen a lot of dips and twists and turns in the economy. Basically, you can really fine tune your targeting and fine tune your understanding of the size, growth, and kind of identity of any business in the U.S.
That's pretty cool, and I think you're answering my next question with some of the verbiage you just utilized. But what are the specific geographic locations that you have data in?
Sure. So we track companies, at least today, based on their headquarter location that they've reported to the IRS or Department of Labor. So every time a company has to file with these agencies, they need to provide an address where they will be receiving mail, where they're submitting filings from. So that's the address that we have on record and on file for that company. It's worth noting that it's not some Delaware legal address. It's the actual operational address of the business. And we do have clients and partners who use us, in fact, just for address. And we get the source address from the filings, but then we also clean it up with the US Postal Service to make sure that that business is still actually actively receiving mail at that address. Because, especially sole proprietors, very small businesses, they move around, there's uncertainty. Sometimes they use a home address, as the business address. We keep track of all that. And we understand if it's a business address or a home address, for example.
That's cool. Can you differentiate between the billing address of a company and any other address that they have?
Not today. So we do collect, but do not yet have in production the what we call the locations, or what are often called the branches, right? So we do actually have that. We do actually store it, but we do not have that available in production today. We do expect it to have it available by the end of the year, by the end of 2021. But right now, it's kind of the official address that they've reported to one of these agencies. So it tends to be the HQ.
Okay. And how I would imagine, since you're tracking financials, customers of yours are going to want pretty live stats on financials.
Mhm.
How often would you say you need to update a record that has been enriched? Or how often are you updating those records so that customers can take changes in their databases?
Yeah, good question. So we update everything monthly. Well, companies could file on any business day with any one of these agencies, but we do update monthly. Now, in terms of the frequency of updates of a particular company, it depends on whether they are, a public company, a private company, or a sole proprietor. So, sole proprietors are the ones who file the least often. They tend to file actually only once a year. So there aren't as many updates on sole proprietors in terms of their financials, because they just file a Schedule C in their 1040, for example, their tax return. But for everybody else, so companies with employees, corporations, and such, and public companies, it's quarterly. But not everyone necessarily follows, has a fiscal calendar that lines up with the normal calendar. So their year end isn't necessarily December 31st, whatnot. So every
Hmm.
day you have filings, but every month we process everything and update
Very
what we
cool.
provide.
So, are you 100% B2B in your data set, or do you have any B2C components?
It's really 100% B2B. Yeah. So we have the most accurate business, firmographic, financial, and credit information on every business in the United States today. We can say that with absolute confidence because it's all verified, it's all official, it's all auditable, and it is indeed very B2B.
That's very good. Now, do you have any contact information, or is it 100% firm data?
It's firm data, it's account data.
Okay,
Yeah,
great.
we do, as part of the filings, collect names and such, but we do not present. We provide one contact name, and that's it. And it's typically the signatory of the key filing that was submitted on behalf of a company. So if it's a small business, it tends to be the owner or CEO or principal. If it's a larger business, it tends to be a CFO or someone like that. So we provide the name of one person, a signatory.
Okay. And do you know how many total businesses are in your database today?
Yes, absolutely. So it fluctuates dramatically, especially now because of COVID, but it's approximately 30 million at any point in time. It did decline a few million in the past year, mostly sole proprietors that went out of business, and some small employers that went out of business. And it's anywhere between 10 to 20% of them that went out of business because of COVID.
Wow.
But it's approximately 30 million. Now I should point out those 30 million, they're not all kind of the same. Roughly 25 million or so are sole proprietors. So basically one person, solo entrepreneurs, small business owners, where it's that one person. And then the rest are employers, so companies that have employees, and public companies.
And how many attributes are in your business catalog? Like how many different attributes can you provide on a business?
Sure. So we actually collect a lot. So we have a little over 5,000 attributes. So it's extremely detailed, extremely rich, and we can really put it into sort of six buckets. One is firmographics, core firmographics. Again, many people provide this, but ours is official. It's regulatory. It's as correct and accurate as it can possibly get. Second are financials, and that's really one of our core competencies. And not only do we have the financials of a company today, we have it this quarter, last quarter, a year ago, 5 years ago, all the way up to 10 years ago, 2010. So you can track a company quarter over quarter, year over year. Um, Third, we have details around headcount and payroll of a company, and headcount is updated every month. We know exactly how many employees they have month after month, so you can imagine you can trend a company. Fourth, we have credit metrics. So it's a variety of credit-related events, primarily relating to delinquencies with the IRS and Department of Labor. Fifth, we have employee benefit information, which is often also classified as ESG. So we know how generous a company is with its employees in terms of welfare plans, healthcare plans, 401k profit sharing, things of that sort. And then finally, we have what we call macro data, which are like industry trends and regional trends. So if you want to know what's going on in this zip code, we know exactly what's going on in every zip code. We know what's going on in every industry because we roll up the numbers of all the businesses in that zip code or all the businesses in that industry. So those are the six broad categories of information that we have, and in aggregate, that's around 5,000 fields.
And out of those 5,000 fields in those categories, are there any like proprietary data points or popular amongst buyers that, they just can't believe you even have this information, or you guys are the go-to for specific data points? Like what are some unique data values you can offer within that catalog?
Sure. So pretty much every client starts off with core firmographics and financials. So that's typically the starting point. But as you can imagine, a wide variety of use cases. Who wouldn't want to know how their client or prospect is doing, right? You want to know, are they profitable? Are they growing? How much money are they making? Did they hire people last month? Are they laying people off? Obviously, everyone wants to know that about their customer base and any kind of ABM or marketing strategies. So it typically starts off with that. Then if they're on the risk or compliance, banking, insurance, financial services, they'll also want the credit information. And that's very detailed and fairly sophisticated. We do also do quite a bit of credit modeling and credit scoring. So we do have a number of credit scores. So that will typically be kind of the next thing that people would ask for. And then if they are on the more asset management side, typically, or more investment side or lending side, they'll often care about regional or industry statistics. And how that's helpful is you might see a company is growing, profitable, say growing 10%, making 40% gross margin. You might think, hey, that's great, but is that really great? To know if that's really great, you'd have to know what's going on in the industry. And so by having those industry benchmarks, industry statistics, you can see, are they kind of overperforming or underperforming
Hmm.
relative to the industry or relative to a region? Because sometimes you just want to go after the best, or sometimes you just want to know, kind of where do they stack up. So, but the starting point is typically core firmographics and financials.
Yeah, and I can see a lot of people probably want to use this type of data for finding new business, but I can also see where that data could be important, especially at this time, calculating possible churn metrics, right? You run your customer base through this service to identify, whether customers are at risk of, they're not as financially stable as they used to be,
Mhm,
or they're much more financially stable. I can
mhm.
imagine running this data against a customer data set would also allow you to kind of identify whether there was a risk in a renewal base, which, we work with a lot of tech companies. Renewals and churn rate is everything, right?
Yep,
And
yep.
if you are experiencing churn, you could probably put a storyboard behind that churn, with some of this data, and have an outlook as to, which types of customers you should actually targeting to improve that churn rate. And it could be specifically focused on, hey, that market right there that used to be a good customer segment for you got just obliterated. So very cool. um do you guys offer any services outside of providing data to your customers?
Yes, absolutely. So we do quite a bit of custom modeling as well. So very often, a client will come to us and say, "Hey, we're interested in predicting X. You might be a bad event, might be a good event. It might be something bad like churn. It might be something bad like a default on a loan. Um, Sometimes they're interested in predicting a specific financial about the company, like they want to know a year from now where's that company going to be. So there could be a forecasting component, to it. But yeah, so we do some forecasting and some predictive modeling, and typically in that case there'll be some feature engineering that takes place where we kind of look at the fields they have, and then we combine it with our fields. And it's interesting, we've done dozens and dozens of models, and we see some recurring themes. Growth and size are key. They're king. If cash is king, well, size and growth are
Hmm.
the most predictive things ever. If a company's growing and they've achieved a certain size, that just already tells you so much about the company, right? If the revenue's trending up, they're becoming profitable, they're hiring a bunch of people, that's obviously a good thing. And if it's trending down, it's obviously a bad thing. And so it's those always end up being there, in these predictive models.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about how you guys license your data? Is it through a credit model or a records under management model, or is it different for enriching data than getting net new data sets? Like, can you teach us a little bit about the licensing of your data sets?
Sure, absolutely. So we provide our data and models and services in a variety of ways, but we have an API. So a lot of our clients, they just want to hit the API, and that's pretty straightforward. You look up a company, you get it, or you want a list of companies that meet certain criteria. We also do bulk extracts. Like, hey, give me all retailers in California, and on a regular basis, and you want that to be updated, and you want to maybe receive alerts, about those. We also do match and append. So where they send us records, either one time in bulk or on a regular basis, we have a very sophisticated matching engine. So where we match records. We also have an online terminal. It's we almost call it like we call it like the Bloomberg terminal of private companies. So it has very much a financial bent to it, because we do serve a lot of clients and partners in capital markets. So it's kind of like a financial terminal, but again, you can look up a private company or a public company. But the preferred method is are definitely API, bulk extract, and match and append.
And do you charge by number of credits used, or do you have like an all you can eat purchase model?
We have both, so it depends on what the client is more comfortable with. And it typically will depend very heavily on their volume and their needs.
Yeah.
Do they just have 5,000 records under management, or 1,000 companies in their portfolio, or do they have loans outstanding on 10 million businesses, and such. There's a cutoff where kind of all you can eat is the better option, for a client. So if they're smaller, they can just consume the data bite size on a variable basis,
Hmm.
and that's people how typically often they start, kind of on a variable basis to kind of test things out, make sure it works for them, and work with us to make sure the integration is tight. And then once they're comfortable with it, they go for kind of an all you can eat based on their universe, based on what they care about. They might not need all 5,000 fields. That's fine. We can cut it down to what they need. They might not need all 30 million records. They maybe only need 10 million or 1,000. We can slice and dice that way.
Very cool. Do you guys offer any freemiums or easy ways to try before you buy?
Absolutely, in all of the above, all the different methods. So whether it's API or bulk or match and append or our online terminal, we have free trials in all cases, and we'll work with a client and partner to see kind of what's most effective for them. We want to make sure it works for them, and we understand, if the data works for you today, it'll probably work for you next month, a year from now, 5 years from now. So we'll work with you, very hands-on to make sure this is a good fit, and see what exactly do you need, what are you interested in, and what will it plug in, and we'll work with you on that. And we're very generous in terms of what we offer for free on at the evaluation and POC stage.
Very nice. I can see this data just, from a high level view incorporated into ideal customer profile analysis. Talking about demand gen, understanding, is your target list of accounts the right target list of accounts, or do you have firms that have low growth, or stagnant balance sheets, or declining assets, right? In your target lists, and are companies that are your customers at risk to churn because maybe they've been hit harder by the pandemic or some other issue. And so I see it there, but I also see it playing a role in territory planning, because again, this is not just you have the general firmographics, which is like size of business, location, industry, employee size, revenue, but if you can add in additional stats like you know um, cash on the balance sheet, and I'm not sure if that's even a field you offer, but I'm guessing some of these deeper financials can be really utilized in both the targeting of who you as a business should be going after, as well as are the markets you're going after trending in the right direction, or do you need to make a shift? And so plays a big role in a lot of what we do as well, which is helping companies to enrich their data with vendors like yourself, and then make sense of that data, put it into segments that can then be scored so that ideal profiles can be built, and then the outbound efforts on those companies start to drive inbound leads, and we like to make sure that those territories and assignment rules are driven more intelligently than may have been set up before we met the customer, by introducing them to firms like you guys who have just some amazing unique data. So I just want to ask you one more final question. If you do have competitors, what is your main competitive advantage, and why should somebody look at you to help them with their demand gen data?
Absolutely. So we have a lot of competitors. There are many, many data providers that provide this kind of information, certainly firmographics. Yeah, whether it's DMB or Zoom Info, Info Group, and such. And then to some degree, we also compete with financial data providers. Such as Refinitiv or FactSet or Bloomberg, although we've partnered with with them as well. And so what really makes us unique is again, first and foremost, all of our information is verified, audited. It's coming from source filings. That means even just the simple core firmographics, in our case, are actually true. If all you need to know is what industry are they in, how many employees do they have, what's their revenue, what do you want that to be real information? Actually coming from filings that they submitted to these agencies on their behalf. And by the way, if they lied in these filings, we're in trouble, right? If there's some mistake, we're in trouble, right? So this is authoritative information. So even just those basics. So we have a strong competitive advantage there. Second is financials. And that's definitely one of the things we're known for, kind of these full, financials we have on companies. And then third is we don't have snapshots. We don't have surveys, these companies. No. We've been tracking these companies month over month for, 11 years now, going back to 2010. But why 2010? Because that's when a number of records became electronic, available in electronic form. Otherwise, we would have gone back even farther in time. Although 11 years is enough for most applications, right?
Yeah.
So that history is also very important, because it's one thing to know that this company has 10 million in revenue and 50 employees today. Okay, that's useful. But it's even additionally useful to know, where were they at last year or last quarter? And how are they faring in this this strange COVID crisis? Did they already start picking back up? Are they struggling? And how's their industry doing? Is the industry as a whole struggling? So those are kind of our core competitive advantages. So there's a lot of competition, and we love it. And but those are our unique unique features. We're the only ones doing this.
Awesome. Well, it was amazing speaking with you. Thank you for joining us today. I think that the audience and listeners are going to get a lot from looking into your data set. And if they want to get a hold of you, other than your profile on the data exchange, what's the best way to get in touch with BrightQuery?
Well, they could call us. We have a free 1-800 number. That's one option. 1-888-BQ Data 1. And they can also email us, sales@brightquery.com. And we also have a contact form on our website. And of course, they should absolutely contact RingLead, our partner in some fashion. And RingLead can set up introduction with the right people.
Awesome. Well, Jose, thank you very much for joining us today. We love talking data with you and look forward to next time.
Thank you very much, John.